The original base. The so-called hidden foot. Karma-vibhaṅga. The analysis of deeds. Part 1. Cross-section of the Borobudur Temple. Locations of the panels. The location of the original case, the so-called hidden foot. The Karma-vibhaṅga panels. The so-called hidden foot of Borobudur refers to the monument's base level, also known as the Karma-vibhaṅga panels, which depict scenes illustrating the law of karma, how actions lead to specific outcomes. This level was intentionally covered shortly after construction, likely as an engineering solution to strengthen the structure and prevent collapse. Fully uncovering the hidden foot today would endanger the temple's stability, as the encasing stonework is essential to reinforcing the base. In 1890, the base was temporarily disassembled, and Casijan Chepas photographed the panels. These photographs are now displayed in Borobudur Museum, located just north of the temple. After restoration, the base was reinstalled, covering the panels again. Today, only a portion of the southeast corner remains visible to visitors. Karma-vibhaṅga. The deeds and their results. The Karma-vibhaṅga panels at Borobudur offer a rich narrative on the law of karma, demonstrating how good and bad actions shape future outcomes. The panels are divided into 5 key sections, each highlighting specific aspects of karma's workings. Here are the 5 key sections. Health and wealth. Rebirth. Permutations. Unwholesome deeds. Wholesome deeds. Health and wealth. This section illustrates how actions affect physical well-being and material prosperity. Positive actions, such as generosity, non-violence, and compassion, result in health, long life, and wealth. Conversely, acts like harming others or greed can lead to sickness, poverty, and hardship. Scenes often show prosperous families, or conversely, the suffering of those plagued by illness or loss. In the health and wealth section of the deeds and their results, various outcomes illustrate how past actions shape an individual's physical well-being, appearance, social standing, and prosperity. These outcomes include short or long life, much or little illness, ugliness or beauty, being undistinguished or distinguished, birth into a low or high family, poverty or riches, and possessing little or great wisdom. Each reflects the moral weight of one's deeds, emphasizing the close relationship between ethical behavior and life's fortunes or hardships. Short life. Herein, what is the deed that leads to a short life? It is said: 1. Killing living beings. 2. Rejoicing in the killing of living beings. 3. Speaking in praise of the killing of living beings. 4. Greatly enjoying the death of enemies. 5. Encouraging the death of enemies. 6. Speaking in praise of the death of enemies. 7. Destroying what is in the womb. 8. Speaking in praise of destroying what is in the womb. 9. Causing a place to be established, where many animals are killed, buffaloes, cattle, pigs, chickens, and so on, during the course of a sacrifice for sons, grandsons, or aiming at advantages for other people. 10. Destroying living beings while acting out of fear and fright. Panel 1. Killing living beings. The first panel depicts the act of killing living beings, with fishermen preparing their traps to catch fish. On the left, musicians are visible, seemingly rejoicing in the killing, while the figures on the right might be praising this violent act. The result, however, a short life, is not shown on this panel. The panel is a strong start to the series, with balanced composition, engaging characters, and a clear teaching. Alongside those who trap and rejoice, others in the center carry away the catch. Their participation in killing also leads to a shortened life. Panel 2. Rejoicing in killing leads to a short life. In this panel, there is no direct depiction of killing. On the right, a hunter, bow and arrow in hand, appears to be speaking, while his listeners seem interested, and possibly rejoicing in his tale. At the center, servants are preparing to cook fish for the meal of those seated above. On the far left, we witness the consequence of these actions, a young child dying in the arms of his parents after a short life. Panel 3. Destroying what is in the womb leads to a short life. On the right, someone is dying and is surrounded by others. They do not seem to be actively killing, but this may be enjoying the death of enemies. Next to them are two people talking together, perhaps encouraging or praising the death of enemies is intended. In the center, there appears to be an abortion, with figures behind possibly praising the act. The result is depicted on the far left. A child lying dying, surrounded by family. The unfinished panel reveals the sculptor's process, outlining first, then carving the main scene, before adding finer details. Panel 4. Killing and encouraging killing leads to a short life. Another unfinished panel, seemingly illustrating the killing of living beings, and the rejoicing in it. A man is restrained on a leash, as an executioner prepares for decapitation, while others sit nearby, either encouraging or praising the act. On the left, two children are depicted in what seems to be a charnel ground, surrounded by scattered bones and a skull. Small animals are depicted scavenging the remains. A figure walks away, though his identity is unclear. It could be a parent. Panel 5. Taking the lives of living beings out of fear and panic results in a shortened life. At the center of the panel, two groups engage in battle with swords, shields, and javelins. While no killing is shown, it is the inevitable outcome. The figures on the right seem to be encouraging the fighters, and appear to be acting out of fear and panic. On the far left, a child lies dying in his parents' arms. Above them, a man leans toward his companion, perhaps discussing the cause of the child's short life. Long life. Herein, what is the deed that leads to a long life? It is said, 1. Ceasing from killing living beings. 2. Speaking in praise of ceasing from killing living beings. 3. Encouraging the ceasing from killing living beings. 4. Speaking in praise of ceasing from killing living beings. 5. The release of those due to be slaughtered, whether men, cattle, pigs, chickens, and so on. 6. Giving fearlessness to frighten people, and having thoughts of compassion in the midst of people who are helpless. 7. Having thoughts of loving kindness in the midst of people who are sick. 8. Giving food to others, whether young and old, and having thoughts of loving kindness towards those who receive it. 9. What was said previously, on the side of wholesomeness, regarding the spectacle of war, etc. 10. Restoring broken monasteries, temples, and stupas. Panel 6. Speaking in praise of restraint from killing leads to a long life. This panel presents three scenes. On the right, a figure, based on his posture, appears to be speaking about restraint, likely praising the cessation of killing. In the center, a wise man may be encouraging this restraint. The sculptors seem to have struggled with depicting long life, though the reason for this is unclear. Instead, the outcome is typically represented by a wealthy couple enjoying the fullness of life, focusing more on prosperity than longevity. Panel 7. Encouraging restraint from killing leads to a long life. Once again, three scenes are depicted. On the far right, a figure gestures, presumably teaching the importance of restraint, while his companions sit quietly, listening. In the center, another figure makes a teaching gesture, either encouraging or praising restraint from killing. On the far left, the result is shown. A young couple seated comfortably, being served food and receiving offerings. They are enjoying a life of both longevity and prosperity. Panel 8. The release of men due to be slaughtered leads to a long life. On the right side of the panel, people are shown hurrying away, likely escaping from imprisonment. They carry something in their hands, though it's unclear what. The figure to their left appears to be the one ordering their release. On the left, a scene of success and prosperity unfolds. A couple sits with their children on a raised platform, while others stand before them, with offerings, or sit on the floor observing. Panel 9. Releasing animals destined for slaughter leads to a long life. On the right, people are shown releasing animals and fish destined for slaughter. One leads what appears to be a boar, another releases fish into a pond, and above them, chickens roam freely. As expected, the result on the left is prosperity and respect. A prince sits with his consort and child, while other nobles gather before him. Panel 10. Giving fearlessness leads to a long life. On the right, a man intervenes, standing over another who has fallen to the ground, and is about to be killed by enemies, giving fearlessness to the frightened individual. The men nearby appear to be aiding his efforts. On the left, a young prince sits on a throne with two consorts, while an elderly man or Brahmin pays his respects before him. On the far left, a lady in waiting gestures toward the scene unfolding ahead of her. Panel 11. Giving loving kindness leads to a long life. On the right, a sick man lies surrounded by others offering him thoughts of loving kindness. In the center, food is being distributed, with the poor eagerly receiving it. On the left, the result is shown. A prince sits with his consort and 3 children, attended by servants. On the floor, someone appears to be speaking intimately with his partner, perhaps explaining the reason behind the prince's prosperity. Panel 12. Giving food to others in need leads to a long life. On the right, a large group of people offers drinks to what appears to be a monk or holy man seated on a platform, though he lacks the usual symbols of wealth. To the left of the separating tree, a wealthy man sits on a throne with 2 consorts, surrounded by visitors and attendants. This scene reflects the reward of his generosity. Much illness. What is the deed that leads to much illness? It is said: 1. Giving a beating with a fist or slapping. 2. Rejoicing and giving a beating with a fist or slapping. 3. Speaking in praise of giving a beating with a fist or slapping. 4. Being satisfied with giving a beating with a fist or slapping them. 5. Annoying mother and father in body and mind. 6. Similarly, afflicting the minds of others, such as virtuous ones who have gone forth. 7. Being satisfied with the illnesses of enemies. 8. Being dissatisfied with the recovery from illnesses of enemies. 9. Giving what is not really medicine to those who are sick. 10. Similarly, giving indigestible food to those who are sick. Panel 13. Slapping leads to much illness. On the far right, 2 men stand over another, lying on the ground, beating him. Nearby, a man lounges on a dais, enjoying the fight unfolding before him. The third scene is less clear, but it seems 2 boys are bothering their parents. On the far left, we see the consequences of such actions. One man clutches his leg, another his wrist, and a third his head, each suffering from different ailments brought about by their misconduct. Panel 14. Giving what is not medicine leads to much illness. On the far right, 2 men stand over another who raises his hands in defense as they beat him. The next scene is unclear. Someone pours from a jug into a pot, perhaps giving something that isn't truly medicine. In a similar vein, the third scene shows a man pointing past his wife toward people on the other side of a tree, possibly taking satisfaction in the illness of his enemies. On the far left, a couple with their 2 children appear miserable, reflecting the consequences of their actions. Panel 15. Giving indigestible food leads to much illness. On the right, we see someone cooking, with a ladle stirring a pot. It's unclear whether this represents something other than medicine or inedible food. In the center, a person reclines in another's arms, clearly in distress, likely after consuming something unsuitable. The text available to the sculptors may have differed from the Sanskrit version we have today, possibly aligning more closely with the Chinese text, which lists overeating as a cause of illness. Beyond the tree on the far left, two people sit, both severely emaciated. Little illness. What is the deed that leads to little illness? It is said: 1. Ceasing from giving a beating with a fist or slapping. 2. Herein, encouraging others to cease from giving a beating with a fist or slapping. 3. Speaking in praise of ceasing from giving a beating with a fist or slapping. 4. Greatly rejoicing in ceasing from giving a beating with a fist or slapping. 5. Attending to mother and father when they are sick. 6. Also attending to others, such as householders and those gone forth. 7. Not being uplifted by the illnesses of one's enemies. 8. Being uplifted by the recovery from these illnesses. 9. Giving effective medicine to those who are sick. 10. Giving digestible food to those who are sick. Panel 16. Praising ceasing from beating leads to little illness. The panel presents three scenes. On the right, a figure sits elevated, seemingly urging his companions to refrain from beating others. In the center, a group of wise men gather in discussion, praising the virtue of restraint from violence. The result on the left shows a couple reclining on comfortable cushions, enjoying good health, while their friends look on with admiration. Panel 17. Praising ceasing from beating leads to little illness. The two scenes seem to depict conversations, likely variations of earlier panels where encouraging others to refrain from beating and praising such restraint are emphasized as causes. To the left of the tree dividing the scenes, we see another portrayal of prosperity. A prince sits with one leg dangling, attended closely by his consort, while other attendants sit nearby. Panel 18. Attending to sick parents leads to little illness. This panel features just two scenes: the action and its result. On the right, a group tends to someone resting in their arms, likely children caring for a sick parent. On the left, the result is shown. A prince sits among high-ranking friends, enjoying good health. Beneath the dais, two boys appear to be playing a game. The next four panels, 19, 20, 21, and 22, along with the right half of panel 23, were uncovered in the early 1940s and remain on public display to this day. The photo shows the current appearance of the exposed panels. Panel 19. Giving effective medicine leads to little illness. This panel features two scenes. On the right, several people tend to a sick individual. One massages his head, another applies oil, and others attend to different parts of his body. They are providing effective medicine or treatment. On the left, the result is depicted. The man now sits in good health while his consorts massage him, and others stand or sit around in reverence. He enjoys a healthy life. The sick individual getting a massage. The result of the massage, the sick man now sits in good health. Panel 20. Virtue in contrast to debauchery and immorality. This panel differs from the others and presents a challenge for interpretation. The tree serves as a divider, with a family on the right embodying a virtuous life, while the left depicts a scene of debauchery and immorality. Scene description. On the right, a family sits on an elevated platform, a father, mother, and their baby, seemingly leading a virtuous and peaceful life. Below them, their servants sit, while in front, 2 men are seated, and 2 others stand, all gazing at the baby with admiration. On the right, 3 individuals sit on an elevated platform, with the central figure holding a bowl. Below them, 3 others are seated, with the one in front serving wine. Three intoxicated Brahmins dance wildly, while below them, one makes inappropriate advances toward a young woman. It continues with a Brahmin dancing wildly and playing the mridangam in front of a person seated on an elevated platform, enjoying the company of 2 women. Below him, 2 more women are visible. Ugliness. What is the deed that leads to ugliness? It is said: 1. Anger. 2. Enmity. 3. Hypocrisy. 4. Contentiousness. 5. Speaking in dispraise of mother and father. 6. And speaking in dispraise of others, such as householders and those gone forth, whether young or old. 7. Not keeping clean the grounds of the monasteries, the house, the temple, and the area around stupas. 8. Breaking lights and statues at stupas. 9. Deriding ugly people. 10. Similarly, deriding those who are pure at heart. Panel 21. Anger leads to ugliness. This panel features 3 scenes. On the far right, 3 men, one with a raised stick, stand before 2 standing figures, and 2 seated ones, likely acting out of anger. In the center, 2 individuals' face a pair depicted as ugly, suggesting they are deriding them. On the left, the outcome is shown. Several ugly-looking people gathered, their anger and derision having led to their condition. The 3 men, on the right, one holding a raised stick, stand before 2 standing and 2 seated figures, seemingly driven by anger. The 2 individuals confronting a pair portrayed as ugly, implying they are mocking them. The outcome depicts several ugly-looking individuals gathered, their anger and mockery resulting in their current state. Though not clearly visible in the photograph, the panel bears 2 inscriptions, both reading Virupa, meaning ugly in Sanskrit. Panel 22. Hypocrisy and contentiousness leads to ugliness. The sculptors likely faced challenges in shaping abstract concepts, like hypocrisy and contentiousness, into tangible forms. The scene suggests that this is precisely what the people are engaged in. The result of harboring ugly thoughts and words is shown: being reborn as an ugly person, accompanied by others of similar nature. Panel 23. Speaking in dispraise of parents leads to ugliness. This panel contains 3 scenes, though the one on the right remains unfinished. It appears to depict a couple seated on a dais, with 4 individuals before them. One holds his hands in unjali, while another points indecorously at the couple, possibly speaking in dispraise of mother and father. The second scene features 2 monks seated on a dais, confronted by a man brandishing a sword or stick, clearly showing disrespect toward those who have renounced worldly life. On the far left, the outcome is revealed: a crowd of ugly individuals gathered together. This section, displaying the first scene of panel 23, is open to the public. Panel 24. Breaking lamps at temples leads to ugliness. At least, breaking lights and statues at places of worship are straightforward to depict. The group on the right is clearly attacking a temple, with one individual using a stick to dismantle it. To the left of the temple, another man raises his stick, poised to shatter a lamp. The outcome is depicted to the left of the dividing tree. Those responsible have been reborn as ugly individuals, condemned to each other's company. Panel 25. Deriding the ugly leads to ugliness. The authors of the text were meticulous in discouraging contempt toward those suffering the consequences of their actions, repeatedly advising against despising those who have erred. On the right, some individuals are shown pointing accusatory fingers and mocking those deemed ugly. On the left, a deformed mother carries her child while others point at her. Following the established pattern, this scene likely represents the result of past actions. Perhaps in a future life, she endures the same torment she once inflicted on others. Beauty. What is the deed that leads to beauty? It is said: 1. Lack of anger. 2. Lack of enmity. 3. Lack of hypocrisy. 4. Giving of clothes. 5. Giving of whitewash in the area around stupas, temples and housing. 6. Giving golden bowls. 7. Giving incense and creams. 8. Giving decorations. 9. Speaking in praise of mother and father. 10. Speaking in praise of virtuous noble ones. 11. Sweeping the monasteries and the area around stupas. 12. Constantly sweeping the housing there. 13. Not deriding ugly people, or others, young or old, or those who are living a pure life. Panel 26. Distributing clothes leads to beauty. On the far right, a wise man seated on a dais, with an open palm resting on his knee, symbolizes the absence of anger, enmity, and hypocrisy. In the center, clothing is being distributed to those in need. On the left, the result is depicted: a royal couple seated in an ornate pavilion, with others presenting gifts before them. The couple appears to embody beauty and grace. Panel 27. Praising parents leads to beauty. On the right, a married couple is seated in a pavilion, with the wife holding a child, and other children nearby. A young woman stands before the father, praising her parents. The more elaborate scene on the left, larger than usual, depicts the result. A young and beautiful royal couple seated on a throne, surrounded by attendants offering their services or presenting gifts. Panel 28. Praising noble ones leads to beauty. On the far right, 3 men seated atop a dais are wise men, rishis. Gathered before them is a large crowd, led by someone likely offering praise to these noble figures. On the left, a young attractive couple in excellent health is depicted, surrounded by attendants, who further emphasize their well-being and prosperity. Panel 29. Giving decorations leads to beauty. On the far right, a male figure, and to the left of the temple, a female figure, appear to be tending to the building, possibly adding decorations. The structures are intricately depicted. As usual, the left side presents a young, attractive couple seated on an elevated platform, surrounded by attendants offering gifts and attending to their needs. Panel 30. Decorating temples leads to beauty. On the right, an oversized man holding an axe sits before a building bustling with activity, likely representing the application of whitewash to housing near stupas. The structures appear much simpler, compared to the ornate temples depicted elsewhere. On the left, a young handsome man sits inside a pavilion with 2 consorts, seemingly instructing the 5 young men gathered before him. Panel 31. Giving gifts leads to beauty. The text makes no specific reference to the giving of flowers, but it is evident that offering gifts results in beauty in a future life. A monk, seated before the temple and seemingly meditating, is depicted as a deserving recipient. On the left, a young handsome man gestures with his extended left hand, likely teaching restraint to his listeners. Members of his household stand behind him, reinforcing the scene. Panel 32. Not deriding the ugly leads to beauty. The text again advises against despising or mocking those suffering the consequences of their actions. An elderly figure, possibly a dwarf, is approached by a royal couple showing him respect. This couple seems to be the same as the one seated on the throne near the center of the panel. Unusually, no tree divides the cause from the result here. Some of the women left of center appear connected to the couple on the nearby throne, while others turn toward the couple seated with their children on the far left throne, enjoying the rewards of their good deeds. Panel 33. Caring for temples leads to beauty. The group on the right has brought water, and likely other offerings to the temple before them. Although not explicitly mentioned, this aligns with the practice of offering gifts to stupas and temples, which is praised in the text. On the left, the result of these good deeds is depicted. In a future life, a prince sits on elevated cushions with two consorts, while visitors before him present offerings. Undistinguished. What is the deed that leads to being undistinguished? It is said: 1. Jealousy. 2. Selfishness. 3. Being dissatisfied with the gains of others. 4. Being dissatisfied by the speaking of praise of others. 5. Contempt of mother and father. 6. Contempt of virtuous noble ones. 7. Similarly, contempt of others who are sick, foolish or old. 8. Speaking in praise of unwholesome roots, and of low things, that are outside the Dharma. 9. Hindering the establishment of bodhicitta. 10. Greatly rejoicing in hindering the establishment of bodhicitta. Panel 34. Jealousy leads to being undistinguished. Near the center, a couple is seated in their home, surrounded by signs of wealth, pots filled with goods and a servant holding a sword. On the far right, another couple sits in their home, focused on their prosperous neighbors, gesturing as they express jealousy over their success. On the left, two men and a woman, scarcely clothed, and visibly suffering from scarcity, represent the outcome of their past jealousy. Panel 35. Selfishness leads to being undistinguished. This panel is somewhat unclear. However, based on the clearer identification of later panels, it likely represents selfishness. While the concept could have been more explicitly conveyed, it seems the affluent man on the right is refusing to share with the holy men before him. The consequence is rebirth into a poor and undistinguished family with few possessions. As illustrated by the old man, one may spend an entire life in poverty as a result. Panel 36. Being dissatisfied with the gains of others leads to being undistinguished. The panel depicts a couple on the far right, expressing dissatisfaction with the gains of the group at the center. It is unclear what the two men at the center are so intently focused on. The outcome on the left shows them reborn into poverty, forced to beg for sustenance. Bare-chested, they extend their hands in the hope of receiving support. Panel 37. Contempt of noble ones leads to being undistinguished. On the right, two wise men sit in the wilderness, surrounded by birds and trees. Nearby, a man sits in a pavilion while two companions, seated on the ground, point accusingly at them, clearly criticizing their way of life. On the far left, the outcome of this disrespectful behavior is depicted: three impoverished men with water pots, standing or seated. One of them extends his hand, as if begging for aid. Panel 38. Speaking in praise of unwholesome roots leads to being undistinguished. This panel presents two scenes, but their exact interpretation is unclear. Typically, an action on the right leads to a result on the left. Here, however, actions seem to appear on both sides, with the possible outcome in the center, where a man carries a child and leads his half-clothed wife. The bearded man on the right appears to be teaching, seemingly extolling greed, hatred, and delusion, the unwholesome roots. On the far left, the same or a similar figure is also teaching, likely spreading the same misguided views. Panel 39. Despising the undistinguished leads to being undistinguished. Though this cause is not mentioned in the Sanskrit text, the panel is quite clear. Contempt for the poor seems to be the intended cause, aligning with expectations. Street musicians perform for an elegant couple seated in a pavilion, offering a collection bowl. However, the man's downward turned hand indicates his refusal to give. As a result, in a future life, he is reborn into a poor family, forced to work as a street musician, enduring the same indignities he once inflicted on others. This concludes the first part of the health and wealth section, covering themes of short life, long life, much illness, little illness, ugliness, beauty, and undistinguished.